Australia's government has promised to pay whatever it takes to help communities recover from ongoing wildfires. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced Monday an additional $1.4 billion in government aid for recovery efforts. Officials had already promised tens of millions of dollars to help rebuild from the fires. About 200 wildfires have burned more than 6 million hectares of land in the southern Australian states of New South Wales and Victoria. At least 24 people have been killed. More than 2,000 homes have been destroyed by the fires. The fires are still burning, and they'll be burning for months to come, Prime Minister Morrison said in announcing the new aid. He added, "If more is needed and the cost is higher, then more will be provided." The government assistance is to be used to help rebuild towns and repair infrastructure damaged by the fires. Morrison said the military was now attempting to get food, fuel, and water to burned-out communities. Engineers were working to reopen roads and resupply evacuation centers. Officials said dry conditions and strong winds were feeding more than 135 fires burning across New South Wales. The fires hit earlier than usual this year after a severe lack of rain led to Australia's hottest and driest year on record. Scientists partly blame global warming caused by human activity for creating a high fire danger. On Monday, rain and cooler temperatures provided a short break to some communities battling the wildfires. But the rain also made it more difficult for fire crews attempting to carry out controlled burning operations. The latest weather was welcomed in Victoria State. However, emergency officials there noted that at least 20 centimeters of rain would be needed to put out the fires. That is about 20 times the amount of rain that fell during the past day. Drier conditions and higher temperatures were expected to return to the area later this week. "We've got big fire danger coming our way toward the end of this week," Victoria State Premier Daniel Andrews told reporters in Melbourne. "We are by no means out of this, and the next few days, and indeed the next few months, are going to be challenging." The wildfires led Australia's capital, Canberra, to experience the worst air quality of any major city in the world for most of Monday. Officials urged people in the city to remain indoors to avoid the thick smoke covering the area. I'm Brian Lynn.
Tens of thousands of vacationers raced to flee seaside towns on Australia's east coast Thursday as fires burned across large areas. Military ships and helicopters have begun rescuing thousands of people trapped by the fires. Fueled by hot weather and high winds, more than 200 fires are now burning across the southeastern states of New South Wales and Victoria. Long lines formed outside food stores and fuel stations near high-danger areas. Shelves were emptied of foods like bread and milk as local people and visitors sought supplies to either stay or leave. More than 50,000 people were reported without electricity. Some affected towns had no available drinking water. Officials urged evacuation of several towns on Australia's southeast coast, a popular area during the holiday season. The officials warned that extreme heat predicted for the weekend will fuel the fire's growth. The priority today is fighting fires and evacuating, getting people to safety, Prime Minister Scott Morrison told reporters in Sydney. The wildfires have killed 8 people in the eastern states of New South Wales and Victoria since Monday. 18 other people are still missing, officials said Thursday. Also, a naval ship arrived at the southeastern coastal town of Malakuta, where 4,000 residents and visitors have been waiting on a beach since Monday night. Naval officers said they would open registration for evacuation Thursday. The ship is expected to make 2 or 3 trips in the coming days, state officials said. Michelle Roberts owns a small restaurant in Malakuta. She told Reuters reporters by phone, "It is hell on earth. It is the worst anybody's ever seen." Roberts hoped to get her 18-year-old daughter out on the ship to get away from the fires and thick smoke that continue to surround the town. 5 military helicopters were on their way to the south coast to support firefighters' efforts and bring in supplies, the Australian Defence Force said. The aircraft will also be used to evacuate injured, old, and young people. A group of 39 firefighters from North America landed in Melbourne on Friday. Almost 100 U.S. and Canadian experts have traveled to Australia to help deal with the crisis. The New South Wales state government declared a state of emergency beginning Friday. The declaration gives officials powers to forcibly evacuate people and take control of services. Prime Minister Scott Morrison urged those waiting for help and those stuck in traffic to be patient. Help will arrive. Temperatures are expected to be above 40 degrees Celsius along the south coast Saturday. It is going to be a very dangerous day. It's going to be a very difficult day, said NSW Rural Fire Service Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons. The Prime Minister said the fires will burn for many, many months. Unlike a flood where the water will recede, in a fire like this, it goes on, and it will continue to go on until we can get some decent rain. Bushfires so far this season have destroyed more than 4 million hectares of bushland and more than 1,000 homes. I'm Katie Weaver.
The United Nations Weather Agency says the past 10 years were likely the hottest decade since scientists began keeping records. In a new report, the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, blames the rising temperatures mainly on greenhouse gases produced by human activities. Average temperatures for the 5-year 2015 to 2019 and 10-year 2010 to 2019 periods are almost certain to be the highest on record, the WMO said. The report predicted that 2019 would become the second or third warmest year on record. Final temperature measurements will not be available for several months. Petri Talas is the Secretary General of the WMO. He says severe heat waves and floods that used to happen about once every 100 years have become regular events. Countries ranging from the Bahamas to Japan to Mozambique suffered the effect of devastating tropical cyclones. Wildfires swept through the Arctic and Australia, he noted. Talas said that one of the main effects of climate change is the lack of predictable rainfall. This presents a threat to successful harvests and will likely create food security problems in some countries in the future, he said. The report said climate change was a main driver of a recent increase in world hunger after 10 years of decrease. It estimated that about 820 million people suffered from hunger in 2018. The WMO said that weather disasters have displaced millions of people this year and affected rainfall from India to northern Russia to the central United States and other areas. Oceans, which take in an estimated 90% of the extra heat produced by greenhouse gases, are now at their highest recorded temperatures. Seawater is also 25% more acidic than it was 150 years ago, the report said. This is threatening ocean environments that provide food and jobs for billions of people. Levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere reached a record 407.8 parts per million in 2018 and continued to rise in 2019. Experts say carbon dioxide can be damaging because it can remain in the atmosphere for hundreds of years and in the ocean for even longer. On Monday, at the opening of a climate meeting in Spain, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres warned that 400 parts per million had once been considered unthinkable. The UN Climate Change Conference brings together representatives from around the world to seek solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Last year, the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change set a goal for countries to limit temperature increases to 1.5 Celsius or below. The group said this target could be reached by reducing greenhouse gases and restructuring the world economy to expand renewable energy sources. The UN reported last week that the world needed to cut carbon emissions by 7.6% each year, every year, until 2030 to reach the 1.5 Celsius temperature goal. The WMO's Petri Talas urged the world to quickly launch steps aimed at reducing temperatures before it is too late. If we do not take urgent climate action now, then we are heading for a temperature increase of more than 3 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, with even more harmful impacts on human well-being, he said. I'm Brian Lynn.